Benvenuti. Benvenuti, grazie di essere qui. La giornata, sapete, è molto ricca di impegni e non voglio...
Welcome and thank you for being here. Maria
Ospita in questa struttura, in questa splendida manifestazione.
FederUnacoma is with us. She hosts us in this exhibition fair here at Nuova Fiera del Levante. As you could appreciate in the morning, Gianfranco Belgrano, editor-in-chief of a group dealing with information, especially with a special reference to Africa, which is the topic of today. Well, today's topic is Africa, which we'll see how we can contribute to boosting agriculture, agri-mechanics in Africa. Well, during the various presentations, you said that the trend is positive, but we know that there is also a new competition which shrinks production shares in Italy and in Europe, and I'm referring to China. Well, my point of view is more optimistic. I've already had 3 meetings with Congo, Senegal, and Ghana, Congo, and Senegal. But this is also the result of a long-term activity. I'm also referring to Mattei plan. But you know that after long-term activities, it is possible to reap fruits. Well, the ministers of agriculture stated this morning that if they want to produce, if they want to become self-sufficient, mechanization investments are really required. This is why, especially for me and for all those who work in the same field as mine, well, we've been long discussing Africa, and the difficulty is what you said before, the fact that our competitors are China, India, and after so many years, China and India have not achieved results. The purpose of mechanization is to produce more, to increase the income. This is especially true for innovative mechanization. And another aim is to preserve resources and soils, which is key if we want to produce more. Well, I want to be realistic, but I believe there's also another important point that I wish to make. Well, we are now competing as Italy-wide system because apart from machines, apart from machinery, we can also convey know-how, convey knowledge, because agri-food sector is very strong in Italy. CREA, which is an Italian research center, which is a very important organization in the field of research in agriculture. Well, the traditional commercial approach is is a bit obsolete, because you have mentioned all the activities that can be backed up by Italy for Africa. For example, education and training. Why is education important for Africa? Well, it is important because agriculture is not developed at all. I've been to Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda. Well, if the yield is 10 quintals per hectare here, in these countries, yield is equal to 1 hectare. 1 ton per hectare. This is why training is important, not only for the use of machinery, but for all the steps along the chain. So we acquired this know-how along the years. 50 years ago, we were still applying manual tillage in the fields, but now tillage is done with machines on the basis of our deep knowledge. Well, and we can help African countries, also because Italians are very generous from this point of view. I'm saying that we've understood that together. We can have a win-win result. So the difference, what makes a difference, is to transfer training modules in these countries involving specific target groups. It means that we can contribute to their training. This is why you designed this project, this initiative. I'm referring to an international initiative. And a survey was launched, because you know that before any activity is carried out, we know that a market survey is needed. And Internationalia, this is a task that has been done by Internationalia. This has been done in Tunisia, Ghana, and Tanzania, if I'm not mistaken. So what about the methodology? What did you survey in these countries? And what about the targets of your survey? Thank you. First of all, I'd like to explain Internationalia. Internationalia is a publishing house with a press agency called Info Africa, a monthly Africa, and a study center. So information that we produce every day, economic information, business intelligence information, about what happens in an area, in a continent including 54 countries. Some countries being a 3-4-fold larger than Italy, and figures which are huge. Africa encompasses 1.5 billion inhabitants. In 2050, 2.5 billion. At the end of the century, 4 billion inhabitants will live in Africa. And the challenge of Africa is to turn the challenge of food security into an economic opportunity. To do so, Africa needs mechanization. It doesn't need land. It doesn't need land, because if you give a look at some pieces of data, Africa hosts 60% of fertile land, which are still ungrown, uncropped. Therefore, there are stretches of land which are not grown, and the challenge is efficiency, increasing productivity in a sustainable manner. This is why Italy, with its expertise and machines, can provide the right answers. So the question raised by FederUnacoma is, do we want to organize? We would like to organize training in Africa, because training can pave the way to Italian machinery, to Italian expertise abroad. And this at a time when Italy, the Italian government, has designed a plan The plan is called Mattei Plan. It was presented in 2024, and one of the pillars of the plan is training. So our answer was based on a survey carried out in Ghana and Tanzania, Western Africa, Ghana, Eastern Africa, Tanzania, and Tunisia, which is very close to Italy, and where Italians, a lot of Italians live there. These countries show up different language challenges. English in Ghana, French in Tunisia, and so on and so forth. And our research, a research carried out with the Internationalia Study Center, was based on the assessment of the training systems which are now followed. I'm not speaking of university education. I'm speaking of high school education. Countries have peculiarities, their own peculiarities. This study helps explain how that sector operates in that country. The final answer could be wrapped up as follow: train the trainers. This is the answer: train the trainers. And train the trainers is the entry point that can allow FederUnacoma, and this jointly with other stakeholders, this can help FederUnacoma enter these countries, provide training, and pave the way to made in Italy products, which becomes really sustainable. So, President, you started with these three countries, a survey of the education and training system in Africa that could provide benefits by training the trainers. And the same system will be applied to other countries. So what about the next step of this initiative? Well, I'd like to thank Internationalia. But you know that when we go on mission, we have to study first to understand the country, and I found your method fast and successful and effective. So what about next steps? First of all, as I was saying, we work, for example, with SIAM, which is a very important organization, which has a long history. It can help us in terms of training. We've also launched the technological center in Uganda this 15 days ago, and we're very proud of that. We're about to open the tender for our businesses and organizing training on the spot with machines, because our job, we have to work, we have to be practical, we have to show how machines operate in the field, and this can yield results. Technological center means having machines, teaching them how machines work and how to maintain machines, because when our companies sell machines to these countries, provide a post-sales service, and we too need to train people on the spot for post-sale service. This is the technological system, and we've done this in practice in Uganda. This morning and last night, we were in touch with the three ministers of agriculture from these three countries. We'll find different ways, different formulas, but on the basis of the concept of technological center, we are flexible. Especially our companies, our businesses are flexible. We'll find a way out. Ghana, for example, Ghana has 265 districts, and they'd like to establish 265 technological centers, which is huge. Work is hard. We'll work step by step. We'll work hard. And I understand that results cannot be reaped in 1 or 2 years, but I'm quite optimistic. I think that African countries will surprise us. Now, I have 2 questions in line with Maschio's reflections. The first one about language. This is not a university education system. It's education for high school or for vocational schools. How are you going to bypass language problems? This is my first question. Second question, on the basis of your survey, it is of 3 countries. Well, I think that you should extend the survey to a higher number of countries, since the objective is not only a few areas, but Africa as a whole. Regarding language, English, French, Portuguese, Arabic, and Spanish to a lower extent. These are the languages which are normally spoken in Africa, alongside local languages. In some countries, namely Tanzania, Ethiopia, Swahili, and American are important as well. From the point of view of studies, well, we can retrieve the information which is needed also in languages which are other than the European ones. From the point of view of on-site training, for example, training the trainers, mean level in Africa is quite high. I'm referring to the mastering languages. This is why an Italian mission can really go everywhere in Africa, can interact with the trainers of the country involved, who can speak with the final user in the local language. This is why training the trainer is the milestone of the project. So we started with 3 countries. It's a pilot project. We opted for these 3 countries as agreed with FederUnacoma: Tunisia, Ghana, and Tanzania, North Africa, Eastern Africa, and Western Africa. These are the 3 countries included in the target countries of Mattei Plan. Target countries are 14. The number can increase. This is under discussion now. There are 13 now. The idea is to develop research progressively and involve other African countries. Prioritizing a given country on the basis of a specific agricultural sector, and also the opportunities for Italy vis-à-vis a given country. Tanzania, for example, is a huge country in terms of surface area. We were there last February on a mission organized by Italian Trade Agency with Italian Embassy at Al Salam, but there are huge stretches of uncultivated land with a great potential there. They can be exploited in a smart manner. African countries are dynamic. They want to work with Italy. They are aware of opportunities offered by Italian machines. And given benefits such as training, given post-sales services, I think that Italy, from this point of view, Italy can find room and take a large share in the African market. The buzzword in Africa is to create added value. When we say added value, we mean producing, processing for local markets at locally. And Italy, for example, in the agri-food sector, Italy can provide answers from packaging to machines for soil tillage and machines for processing. Last question. Well, you mentioned some partners for international cooperation because you need collaboration with other partners. You mentioned one before, but I'm sure there are other partners. Well, lots of partners can be identified, but it also depends on the various needs. For example, with Ghana, the minister, well, one of the problems with the African countries, well, you know, African countries have a small plots as small farmers. It is difficult for them to make huge investments to buy a machine. So the point is giving them the possibility of establishing cooperatives. And in Italy, there are areas where cooperatives work well, very well. We are in contact with some important cooperatives associations. And I now, thanks to Minister Lollobrigida, Minister Lollobrigida is making us work as a system through collaboration, mutual collaboration. When Minister Ghana mentioned this point, last week I was at Nokomo in a conference of American European farmers, and I also met Lega Coop. We were discussing this possibility by involving Lega Coop. So it's an exchange. It's this afternoon we had a meeting with the minister, and the minister asked us how they can set up cooperatives. And this is a benefit for us, because if they create a system of cooperatives, they have a higher purchase power and they can make investments for the purchase of Italian machinery. The various associations, the institutions that can help us respond to the needs of the various countries. The minister is doing an excellent teamwork from this point of view, which with a big benefit for all of us, for the agri-food system and for Italy, because if our aim is to increase exports, we are on the right track. So did you map agricultural training centers despite the differences from one country to the other? And what's the state of the art about agricultural training centers? And according to you, how can this activity be effective in all these countries? Well, every single country has its own context. And the strategies will be customized based on the country. Tanzania, for example, till the 90s, it had a single party. Even though now there are several parties, but this passed. It's passed is also has a repercussion on the way education and training are organized. Therefore, we have to understand how FederUnacoma can propose training programs, training modules about Tunisia. In Tunisia, there is a centralized structure. It means that the main interlocutor is the ministry. In Ghana, a reform was issued, a recent reform, 3 or 4 years ago, of the training system, the VET centers, the vocational and training centers. And it is the same in many other African countries, because there's a hunger of vocational training. There's a hunger of specialization of technicians who can back up industrialization and mechanization processes. Because if I'm not mistaken, there are no topics about agricultural mechanization taught in the high schools. No, generally speaking, in some countries there are agricultural consortia or the unions that can mediate in the field of training. If I'm not mistaken, in other countries there can be other actors, for example, NGOs. Also, the Italian Cooperation for Development Agency, with the new law of 2014 that reviewed cooperation. So the Italian Cooperation for Development has proposed cooperation projects with a private stakeholder, the company that works with the NGO at local level. I was taking a stroll here in the pavilion and I met 2 players that I met in Africa, 2 representatives of the private business, Iritech, which is a company involved in precision irrigation, was in Senegal, where they developed a project with the Italian cooperation regarding training in irrigation. And that project was also the entry point of that company in the local market. Another big brand is New Holland, which is here. I was in Mogadishu, and there was a project with Italian cooperation and UNIDO, which is United Nations Development Organization, with a local cooperative. Cooperatives are very interesting because the Africans trust the Italian agricultural system, and this synergy has allowed to import machines. And through the local cooperative, these machines have been spread, and in Somalia as well. Somalia is not a stable, politically stable country. But the fact that we were successful in Somalia, it means that we can work successful in other countries as well. This is a new strategy that has already been kicked off. And the point is to understand the state of the art, to make actions which are properly targeted. And I'm sure that all these actions and programs can yield successful results in the future. And a big shout out to all your initiatives. Thank you.